now. So, Dr. Kim, from going from my buddy to my boss, that's definitely an interesting dynamic, if you will.
Oh, yes, Jermaine. Well, let me tell you, I'm excited to be here on this Wednesday, just as I am every other Wednesday. But listen, when I tell you we've all experienced this type of situation before, where we are coworkers, we are friends, and then all of a sudden, one of you get promoted. And so you move from buddy to boss. And so it is so, when I tell you it's one of the most unique situations, because oftentimes when coworkers or friends become your manager, it actually becomes very difficult to draw the line between what was and what is. And so you are used to going to the break room together, going to, the water cooler, getting coffee and talking and having all different type of coworker dynamics. However, when you are promoted, you look at the situation as if this was just your friend who did the same role as you, and now you have to report to someone that you viewed as your equal, or better yet, now you have to manage that person that you viewed as your coworker friend. And so what do you do? Wow, listeners, so for those of you who are out there listening on tonight, Jermaine, what do you do when you go from buddy to boss? Because it's happened to all of us. But I do want to share with you a little bit. See, oftentimes when we have this transition and what takes place, you can either use Joseph pit to the palace type situation in the Bible, where Joseph was telling his brothers about the vision that he had and that they would bow down to him. And so he was, in essence, saying, I will be the leader. Well, his brothers didn't take lightly to that. So if you liken your situation to you sharing with friends within the workplace that you are going to be the next CEO, or you're going to be the next project lead or the program manager or the director, you run the risk of not having their support at that next level. And so if you remember correctly, while listeners, Joseph's brothers end up throwing him in a pit, then they sold him to Potiphar. Now, yes, we know it ended up leading to his destiny. However, we want to make sure that when you are going from buddy to boss, there is a changing of the guard, because you could end up with a Joshua-type succession plan. Now, ideally, we would all like this type of succession plan where Moses actually prayed about who would succeed him in his leadership role. But hear me out, wild listeners. Either way, you actually have this changing of the guard. Either way, Jermaine, that you go from buddy to boss, it will require you, wild listeners, to make some transitions. Listen. Most often when you get that new leader role and you go from buddy to boss, what happens, Jermaine, is we don't want people to think we've changed.
Right.
And so most of the time people will say, oh, you have this new position and, quote, unquote, now it's going to your head. Now you're thinking you're better than we are. Well, it's not that you've changed. And so for those of you who have gone from buddy to boss, I want you to understand it's not that you've changed. What has changed is the role and the responsibility. And so I want to give you a few strategies that's going to help you out on tonight. So, number one, make sure that you acknowledge the change. Most of the time, Jermaine, when people are transitioning into a new leader role, you just really get it in an email, or you get it at a meeting or some type of team announcement, and you're like, wait a minute, I didn't know you got this position. But see, if you are going from buddy to boss, you want to think like Joshua thought. He acknowledged the fact that he was taking Moses' position. He said that he honored Moses' leadership, but now in Moses' death, he will now be the leader. And so you want to make sure that you acknowledge that the change is taking place. This is biblical principles, but you can use it in a practical, everyday workplace situation. Then, Jermaine, what we don't do as the buddy that was once, the co-worker, now that you're the boss, you don't establish clear roles and responsibilities. I need you to establish a vision, because I just shared with you, our listeners, that when you make the transition, you try to remain in that same position. You try to remain friendly. You try to remain as the coworker. Well, the responsibility has changed. So now you need to establish direction and vision for those who were your coworkers. All right?
Right.
And then embrace the change. Listen, lead the way. You have the position now. There's no sense in being apologetic for something that you have been equipped and prepared to take and do. So I need you to role model the change and disengage from that casual conversation. Most often you will get leaders who have compromised their leadership integrity and character because they try to remain in that situation of, I don't want to view myself as better. Well, you're not better, but you definitely are different. Right. And so I need you to disengage from that casual conversation. While listeners, establish clear boundaries. You have to. Then I have two more points here, because this is where I'm helping you up-level your knowledge and up-level your practical skills in the workplace using biblical principles. I need you to adapt to the change. Here is the deal. You need to allow a small window of adjustment period. Most often we don't get that. It's, hey, Jermaine, I have this new position. Now you report to me. See, when Joshua gave the tribal leaders, when he had transitioned, he gave the tribal leaders a few days before they crossed the Jordan River. He says, in a few days we will cross the Jordan River, so go and get all of the food that you need. Go and get everything, because in a few days we're going to take the journey and take the land. Do you understand? So what I'm requesting of you is that once you've acknowledged the change and you adapt, you give them the ability to adapt. You say, we're going to have a meeting in a couple of days, and I need you to go get all the questions that you have about how we're going to take over this new project, how we're going to move from not being in the first in the department to this, we're taking over the whole organization. So I need you to be able to lead the way and adapt to change and allow that window of adjustment. And last, but definitely not least, Jermaine, while listeners, I need you to be consistent.
Right.
You have to apply all of the above. But you need to learn to make adjustments along the way. And how do you make those adjustments? You empower your then coworkers, now employees, like Joshua did in 18 and 8. Right. You empower them by encouraging them to go out, take the projects, and do the work. And then they come back to you, because Joshua told them, hey, well, you go out. You take inventory, take the draft, draw it up, come back, and we'll cast the lots for it over here in Shiloh. So I need you all as a leader, when you're transitioning from buddy to boss, you need to empower those who were your then coworkers and your now employees to go out and be effective and be successful. Listen, you are changing the guard. And when you change, there's a changing of the guard, there has to be a changing of the mindset. Right. From buddy to boss, this is a successful transition with Dr. Kimberly Ellison. Jermaine, that's all I have for Winning on Wednesday on tonight, and I hope it's made it an effective workplace transition.
It certainly has, and there is so much more that can be